marching on. Yeah, get comfortable so you don't feel pushed against the wall.
All right, everybody. Good afternoon. Happy Tuesday to everybody out there. It is a beautiful Tuesday. It's the first day of April 2025, and this is that pop-up show, the pop-up podcast, hashtag That Afternoon Show with Jeffrey Smith, an opportunity and privilege I get twice a month to talk to men and women, partners, community partners, educators, all kinds of great people that work with and in the Garrett Community School Corporation. And today is going to be just an awesome way to kick off the month of April, because we got a young lady who's taking time out of her busy day. We've been doing other stuff as well behind the scenes, but she's taking time out of her busy day to come on the podcast today and let us know all about the great things that are happening in the district, as well as parental involvement and the like. So with that being said, we want to jump into it very quickly, because as I said, when we get these people on the pop-up podcast, they're right in the middle of stuff. So I always take an opportunity to say thank you for those people who come by and hang out with us during the middle of the day. With that, what's going on, young lady? How you doing?
I am doing well. How are you?
I'm doing great. Introduce yourself to our wonderful audience.
My name is Jamila Adams. I am the Assistant Director of Curriculum and Assessment for Gary Community School Corporation.
Wow. Now, see, I get that. I love when Krista and Chelsea send me the fancy people. That's a pretty elaborate title. If you don't mind, kind of let us know a little bit what that entails.
Absolutely. So for my role, I mostly work with our MTSS, which is our multi-tiered systems of support. So we're working on our students, making sure they have interventions for attendance, behavior, academics. And then I'm also working with parent engagement for the district. So I want to make sure our parents' voices are heard. And so doing a lot in both of those areas, as well as curriculum.
That's what I was about to say, because I heard the word curriculum. Yes. And so are you somewhat of a liaison between parents who are kind of wondering what's going on, what their kids are learning, maybe have some questions and things like that, and the district, which is obviously there's a director who kind of oversees that. So you're kind of like that little liaison.
So so I am the person that is going to make sure that our parents, are equipped to support their kids with what they're learning, but then also understand, what it is that's going on behind the scenes, where to get resources. So yes, I'm working with them for.
You know what? I like that, because I think a lot of times we don't necessarily understand how the sausage is made, because, I know that the conversation post-COVID, when a lot of parents, I always kind of say, had the wake-up call about, wow, my kids are staying home. I'm going to have to get involved in this a little bit more than I have to. Oh my God, I don't know the new math. I don't know what they're doing. I want to be able to help, but I don't know if I can. So I'm going to have to give myself a crash course in what my kids are learning. I think parents had to kind of go back to the drawing board and start to talk to you all in a manner that all of us, I think a lot of us were doing pre-COVID, where we were kind of on automatic. You know what I'm saying? We were dropping our kids off in the morning, picking them up at the end, and hoping that they were learning stuff in between. But it got different during COVID or after COVID, where now we had to really figure out, how the sausage was made, and a lot what you educators were doing. So I thank you for kind of explaining to us, because there has to be a you out there to make this thing work, right? Because teachers, administrators, they're kind of doing a lot of their things, and then you've got the parents out here who are living their lives doing their things, but somehow the kids have to be supported during the course of that. So so you're out there, you're that person.
Yes, I am that person. Me and my team. We are those folks.
So give me a little bit, because I know there's some initiatives, some things you got going on, but kind of give us a little bit. I'm curious. This is for my own personal curiosity. Bring me into your day. What does that go? What goes into your daily operation? Ooh, I'm curious.
That depends. Currently, lately it's been supporting McCullough.
Oh, obviously. I mean, we understand it's all hands on deck right now.
On deck. But my day is, so we have a grant. The district has a grant, so I work a lot with the grant on parent engagement.
And so what is parent engagement for people out there that wonder that? I mean, the name seems self-explanatory, but I assume there's a science behind it. Go ahead and let me know what it is.
So the parent engagement that we want to bring is not your typical, just doing events. Parents pop in and then they go away and they go home. The parent engagement we really want to get to is parents actually being full stakeholders in this district, where they have an opportunity to voice their opinions, where they have an I need to know, and where they really show up as integral parts. So not just having staff there, we want to make sure staff and parents are on the same page and they're working together to make sure that their kids are successful. But we also want to have the parent interested in if they feel like they need literacy support, or if they're during COVID Johnny has 4 apples. If they understanding what the kids are coming home with, like, we want to make sure they have a full understanding of it, because we want to be able to push our parents forward as well.
Yeah.
And so parent engagement means we want to see you guys volunteer in school.
Right.
We want to see you coming into the regional stakeholder group, which we'll get to, and really voicing your opinion on how you've experienced Gary. A lot of the parents went to Gary Public.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
So it's like, how did you experience it? What were the good parts of that? What do you want to see change? What are you hearing from your kids?
Right.
So it's more than just, hey, show up to this family night. It's also you really be in the rooms with the folks that are making the changes in the policies, and so that your voice is included in those changes. I
like that. And so does it involve, bring me a little bit behind the scenes, and of course we're not at all insinuating that most parents, I'm a glass half full guy anyway, so I'm always going to believe that most parents are always concerned and are involved with the education of their scholars, or as I refer to them all the time on my show, the precious cargo, because I just believe that those of you that are fortunate enough to be parents, is one of the most important things that you can ever do, bringing another person into this world and shepherding them. So with that being said, how do you, though, get parents who, have other things going on? It's not easy being a parent. You're out here working your job, trying to keep the lights on, trying to be a parent in all those other aspects. And then you have this little education, space that you have to be focused on. But how do you get parents sometimes to come into that world? You know what I mean? Because it's, as I said, pre-COVID, a lot of people, and the reason I know this is because a lot of parents were kind of coming to the party admitting it, that, they were just kind of resigned to the fact that I'm dropping my kid off. You know what I mean? You're the professional, you're the educator, send them back with some stuff in their head. And then now we're asking them to get more involved in that. Sometimes that's a little bit off-putting. Sometimes parents can get intimidated because they're wondering if their schedules are going to be in flux. How do you kind of bring them in with that carrot or stick? What's the carrot that you use to dangle?
So I just think the basis or the foundation of anything is relationship building.
Absolutely.
That is, I used to be a teacher, and
so you get it.
Yes. So for me, you have to have relationships with students, parents, anybody, in order to move them. There's a quote that says, "You can't check somebody you don't check on." So my thing is relationship building always across the board. And so for the parents, I want them to, I'm a new face. So it's like, hey, who is this person? Get to know who I am, but also I want to make sure it's accessible for them. So parents are at work. Okay, so even when we tried to set up the regional stakeholder group, I sent out a survey. What hours work best for you? I'm not just going to throw something on the calendar and invite you. I need to know what works best for you. You may be coming after work. Let me make sure you have some food, some snacks, something that you have in preparation. Let me make sure that you have some resources that you can take home to work with your children. You always want to make it accessible. You always want to make it a valuable use of their time. We don't want to have folks come and then it's like, okay, we sat here for an hour.
Exactly.
This meeting could have been an email. I have been in those meetings that could have been emails. I don't want to put parents, staff, anybody through that, So I try to always make it something that I would want to be a part of. And I really do think that relationship building piece is extremely important for parents because they want to be heard. So even if I have to let a parent have a 10-minute vent session, I'm then listening to pull out the pieces that I can solve.
That's interesting.
And then I think they feel more comfortable with you when they know that you actually care about what they have to say.
Now you bring up something, and as I said, I come from a home of educators, so I got an opportunity to see stuff up close, but it doesn't mean I understand it all. So you talked about the fact of kind of checking on each and every student, kind of keeping them, having those relationships. And I like to bring people in because, as I said, I'm probably more sympathetic than most. Crystal can appreciate that. I mean, all of us, just because of our family, about what, teachers and educators you all go into. Because I think, this is my own personal feeling, is that a lot of us take our teachers and educational staff for granted, and we don't realize they have families, they have lives, and they have things too. And so, we kind of take them for granted. So what I'm asking is, How do you do that? How do you go out here and maintain or develop these relationships? Because obviously every scholar has his or her own needs. You've obviously got stuff going on. You still have to kind of maintain the other parameters of your job. Mm-hmm. But how do you because relationships sometimes require nurturing.
Yes.
Some parents are going to require a little more attention. They want a follow-up phone call.
Yes.
When you have already given 4 or 5 phone calls before you got to go home and deal with your own family. You're already an hour after school longer. And so how do you kind of do that? I want to let people know about just the extra stuff that you all do.
Yeah. Well, I think I know what field I went into 11 years ago, and I knew what education required. I knew what it required. Like, it's not a job that, of course you put your self-care first. Because I can't pour from an empty cup.
Exactly. I like that.
But I also know that I have to show up in a way that is more than just I clock in, I clock out.
Yeah.
It's more than that to me, and any educator should feel that way because these are actual lives we have in balance, right? So sometimes that means you stay a little later. Sometimes that means you listen to some complaints that are like, okay, I thought we already solved this. But I think it also is like empowering, which is one of the things I'm really working on with the parents, is empowering them to have that self-efficacy where they can do these things themselves.
Right.
It's not always, I have to run to you. A lot of parents think of educators as the experts, but in reality, they are the experts on their children.
Yeah.
They created them, they birthed them, they have them more hours than we do sometimes. And so it really is just showing them how they can show up for one another and then creating that network amongst themselves.
Yeah.
Where just the same way I used to do students, it was ask 3 before me.
Yeah.
All right, you have a question. We might have already worked on this. I need you to reach out to your network and see who can help you solve that before you even get back to me.
Wow, that's kind of interesting. So I guess what I would also ask is, when we're talking about the parental relationships, there's also this other factor. And I learned this, and it didn't just start. I learned this post-COVID when we really started to look at this, more than we had done prior to that. And that is the relationship of the parents and maybe some traumas or maybe some experiences that they had in school. Because I automatically assumed that, and I don't know where I got this from, but I just automatically assumed, that parents just kind of got school and things like that. But I really didn't realize, and I saw a nice little testimony shortly after COVID when schools were closed down and we were having the narratives about, to not, remote learning or in person and the value, and then parents started to weigh in, they get parents' opinion. And I really didn't realize that there are some parents that are sometimes very reluctant to come to the party and be involved just for the simple fact of their own personal reasons. You know what I mean? Whether it be a parent who might have not had the best run or best experience when they were going through K through 12. And then I talked about this at the beginning. Parents who are intimidated because they and I would put myself in that category. I went to college and things like that, but I look at some of the new math and some of the new ways that students, and if my wife wasn't a teacher, I would be, devoid of a lot of stuff that is being done there. And, nobody wants to sit in front of their kid and be embarrassed when they're trying to help them with the homework. So that kind of sends parents into other places where they're like, well, I'd rather pay for you to have a tutor than for me to sit over here and lose parent points by trying to help you do something that a 4th grader should do. So how do you kind of rope people in, or not rope them, I think that's the wrong word. How do you entice people to kind of come into that space while not making, while not kind of playing into their insecurities?
Yeah. So I think I often think about the fact that, like, how we say folks have church hurt.
Yeah.
There are adults who
you got a lot of phrases I like. I'm stealing all of them.
There are parents who have school hurt.
Yeah.
Like, they did not have good experiences
They didn't have
in school. And one of the things that I've already started working on with some of our staff is, are we using restorative practices and restorative approaches with our students?
Yeah.
And then what approach was used with you as an adult?
Yeah.
And most of the adults have talked about how they were dealt with punitively. most of the parents have experienced that. They don't like school. And when they don't like something, it's no longer important.
Right.
And so now it's not being placed as important in the household. And then the kids, it transfers to the kids. The kids are just like, I'll come to school.
They get the vibe.
Exactly. And so for me, it is about shifting adult mindsets. Like, we have to shift adult mindsets from the staff to the parents. And one of the things that, like, I want to build in parent literacy workshops. Those are going to be places where I'm going to be very intentional about the staff I bring in.
Yeah.
Because if I bring in a parent and they come in with the vulnerability of saying, hey, I don't know how to do this English, or I don't know how to do this math.
Yeah, pull the mic just a little closer. No, you're fine.
You have to be a staff member that actually can maintain that person's dignity. You can't be a staff member that comes in and is like, oh, I gotta teach an adult. No, there are deficits in all of us in different areas.
Yeah.
So hey, they didn't learn how to do Common Core math.
Right.
Ooh, like, we're gonna teach them, but we're gonna maintain their dignity as a parent, and let them know that this is a way that they can now support their kids in a better way, and they can be that expert and that hero for their children.
Yeah. And go ahead and say your name again, because I want to.
Jamila.
Hey, Jamila. Well, once again, welcome to the show. And in case you're just tuning in, we're listening to the Pop-Up Podcast. # That Afternoon Show with Jeffrey Smith. Once again, a privilege and an honor I get twice a month to talk with members, partners, community stakeholders, all kinds of different folk who work with the Geary Community School Corporation. And I say it's a privilege. It is absolutely that, because I get to meet cool people like Jamila and so many others during the course of our program. I want to also ask you about this, because I want to get into something else you want to talk about. And this is just my own personal thing, and I always really kind of do this on my morning show as it relates to when I get into my little diatribes about the Geary Community School. So I won't bore you with it, because I will talk forever. It's just nature of my beast. But I don't think sometimes we talk enough about the gifted kids and the gifted scholars that come matriculate, not only through school in general, but through the Geary Community School. And the reason I bring them up is that. And so we're talking about parents and things like that. I'm in this mode now, and my most recent movie that I saw that's kind of into this mode is Akilah and the Bee. Mm-hmm. I've seen it I don't know how many times, but it always kind of hits a nerve with me when I watch it. And I've seen other movies like this, The Great Debaters and all this. And there's a theme to movies like this. And the theme is that sometimes you might have that scholar, that child, who finds himself in a sea of uncertainty because of those situations that we named. A very well-intentioned parent, Angela Bassett in Akilah and the Bee, who's just working, trying to do what she has to do, but doesn't really realize what the debate or what the spelling bee means to Akilah. And so I guess what I'm asking you is about, how do you go out here sometimes and support the talented kids who are in here? Because I think, and this is my opinion, I'm on the outside, you're in there, you're on the front lines doing the work, so I'm sure you know better than I do for sure, is that we have tended in recent years to really focus on the students that are lagging. And I don't have a problem with that. I don't want any child left behind, I get it. But I also think that sometimes in doing so, we don't continue the stimulation of the children that are engaged and sometimes need to be challenged. And I'm one of those guys, and all I can do is base it off my own experience. And that is that I do believe a rising tide lifts all boats. I really do. Some kids are maybe not going to graduate and be the top of the class, but I do believe that if you do have about 3, 4, 5, maybe as many as 7 or 8 that push the class forward, the rest will come. They might not come to the same level, but they'll move up. And sometimes I think we focus on the kids that don't get it, and we have those kids that actually do and just want to move a little faster. They get stagnant and frustrated. How do you kind of juggle that?
So I'm going to steal that, a rising tide lifts all boats.
Yes.
You're taking my quotes, I'm taking your quotes.
Yeah.
I will say I was fortunate enough to go to a gifted school in elementary school.
So you get
I'm not from Geary, I'm from Chicago.
That's okay.
So shout out to Kiki Palmer, because she's
what I'm talking about.
Chicagoland.
Yeah.
But I saw the difference between the neighborhood I lived in, the kids that went to the school that actually ended up being the first school I taught at.
Yeah.
And the school I got on a school bus and went out to.
Right.
Right. And so I saw like the disparity very early on and what I had access to and what the kids in my neighborhood had access to. And something that I try to teach other teachers is, it's easy to say this kid is behaving well and they're performing well academically, so I don't have to worry about them. I have to focus on the other ones, right? But what often happens is, behavior-wise, if I have a student who's behaving properly and following the rules and all of these things, eventually they'll see that the attention is shifted to everybody else, and eventually that behavior is going to shift.
They're going to.
And academically, they may always remain, hey, I'm right here, but they're not being pushed. So I often talk to teachers about there has to be an enrichment piece.
Yes.
Even in a general education classroom, there should always be differentiation in a classroom.
Thank
I
you.
was a
It's
special
not a bad
education
thing.
teacher at all.
Yeah.
Most people don't know that gifted students technically fall under the special education umbrella.
Yeah.
They don't think about that. So they think of those things as completely different things. And you have to consistently push your students. All students should be pushed.
Right.
But there has to be differentiation in any classroom. And I find it sad that most general education teachers don't get the education on how to differentiate. We as special education teachers do. But every teacher needs
because
to
I didn't mean to interrupt you, but I remember talking to a couple of educators, some of the predecessors to our current superintendent now, and there was always a constant, and that is they all came from special education backgrounds, and that somebody who I'm not an educator or things like that, and just from the layman's view of special education, but I kind of put my science hat on. And I get it. I understand exactly what you just said more. And I think maybe this is something for academia to figure out. But I understand why special education, because I think when you approach it through the lens of a special education taught or academic, you can appreciate that every student has its own different stimuli. Versus kind of this one-size-fits-all approach. Hey, good student, bad student, and you kind of leave it at that. When you come through the purview of a special education instructor, you realize that, this kid is being stimulated by something to do well.
Yes.
I need to keep manufacturing that. I need to nurture that and work on that. This kid is perceiving information a little differently, but they're getting it. I need to work on that and massage that. Yes. And I think that gives you a little bit more adaptability as an educator. And I'm not going to say it's better or whatever than the normal teacher, but I just think it gives you a little bit more experience, more insight, and more tools in the toolbox to pivot when you have to with students. Is that accurate?
Absolutely. Like, we are trained to be flexible and responsive to whatever is happening in our classroom.
Yeah.
And I think that that's a piece that every teacher should have. Is really, I can take one lesson and I can take it lower if I need to. And I can scaffold it, or I can take it higher. And we have to be able to do that with everything that we put in front of these kids. And I think that's where MTSS comes in, which is why I'm so glad that that's my part of the work.
Explain MTSS.
So MTSS is multi-tiered systems of support.
Yes.
So basically, every child in a school should be at tier 1, having those tier 1 foundational level of academics, of behavior. So you can look at it as a triangle.
Yes.
So let's say that bottom of the triangle is where every kid should receive tier 1 services.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yeah.
Every kid should get that. Then tier 2 is, okay, this student either needs some more support, they need to be pushed a little bit more. We've done a screener, we've seen, hey, they may need some more personalized small group interventions. That's what tier 2 is. So when parents are trying to understand MTSS, it's like, let's say everybody is using the same curriculum. That's tier 1.
Okay.
But my student needs just a little bit more support. So a teacher is going to pull my student into a small group with maybe 3 or 4 other kids. And give them some additional support on like reading skills or mathematics skills. That's tier 2. We want to see, has my child responded to those interventions? So there should be actual data. We're 6 weeks, 8 weeks. We're looking at this data. We're giving them intensive supports. And then if they're not, now we're looking at tier 3. And tier 3 doesn't always mean special education services. It just means more individualized, one-to-one support. And we're still tracking that data. And I always like to make sure folks know that just because a kid moves up and gets tier 2 supports or tier 3 supports does not mean they no longer get those tier 1
Right,
supports.
right.
Everybody should have those tier 1 supports.
Right.
We should be hitting
You're
students
building on
wherever.
them.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It literally
It's
is a triangle.
foundational.
Yes.
Yeah.
So that's what MTSS is, and that works for behavior, that works for attendance, that works for academics, that can even work for parent engagement. And we just want to make sure that at every school that MTSS is taking place. So that's part of my work, is starting to get those MTSS processes off the ground.
Yeah.
The schools use Skyward, making sure that's up and running, working to get behavioral health teams for our tier 2 and 3 interventions, culture and climate teams for our tier 1 interventions across the board. So those are some of the things we'll be rolling out over the summer and into the beginning of the next school year.
See, that sounds like a very intensive process. I want to ask you kind of about the logistics, and I know we don't have all that time to kind of get into it because this is so intense. I'm curious. But how do you go about doing that? Because number one, as you said, so the first thing in my mind and that I would think about is you got to go out here and start identifying students. And so that's obviously going to require some testing. You're going to have to kind of put them into the categories and things like that and catalog them. Then you got to go out here and, do your analysis and kind of get everything figured out. Now you got to bring the parents in and kind of do a little indoctrination and introduction to that. How does that process work? It seems like a lot of work. How do you get that done during the course of a school day?
It's going to be work, but it's not as much work as you think.
Okay.
It's going to start with having strong tier 1.
Yeah.
Before we can even get to tier 2 and tier 3 at GCSE, we have to make sure we have strong tier 1.
Nice.
So if my curriculum is strong, then that leaves less opportunities for kids to fall through the cracks and need those tier 2 and 3 interventions.
Right.
If my social emotional learning curriculum is strong and we're really addressing social skills, responsible decision making, all of the CASEL 5 competencies, then we are leaving less opportunities.
Now, Jamila, I want you to explain something to us
Yes.
real quick because I'm. This is where my cynicism comes in, and I apologize. Explain social emotional learning to our audience because I know what it is, obviously, and things of that nature. I'm just full disclosure because I want to be consistent with my persona on the radio. I absolutely am so sick of it, and I don't buy it. The social emotion.
No.
I lived in a world. Where my feelings did
Don't
not
matter.
too much impact. Sorry, nobody came and checked. Jeffrey, you okay?
How you feel? How did that make you feel?
Do you feel safe? No, nobody asked me that. It was like, you do stuff due before the end of the class. If not, we're calling your parents, or you might have to stay after and miss that bus. Things were more, I guess, driven by deadline driven and all those kind of things that I guess the argument at the time, and I'm not saying they were right or not, we know more, is that it was more reflective of the real world.
Yes.
You get what I mean? So now when I think about the soccer moms that I always poke fun at and the participation trophies, it seems a little bit of a soft approach, right?
Yes.
For getting kids to kind of do what we're trying to equip them to do so they can be functional adults. How are you feeling? Is your tummy okay? That kind of stuff. So explain to me social emotional learning in the practical sense.
Absolutely.
So you don't have idiots like me. So you don't have idiots like me out here explaining it.
This is my jam. Before I came to GCSE, I actually was an SEL specialist.
Okay,
so now
there you go. I got them experts.
My jam. So let me just say this: I was raised that way too. I don't think any of us were raised very super touchy feely.
Yeah,
right?
it's soft.
But that's not what SEL is. Like I tell folks all the time, SEL is not rainbows, unicorns, and sunshine, right?
See, that's what I got.
It literally is not.
Okay.
It is really equipping. It is more so equipping children for the real world than the way we were raised, because it's equipping them to advocate for themselves.
Oh, okay.
It's equipping them to speak up. It's equipping them to set boundaries. It's all the things that we don't know or are learning now in counseling as adults.
Yeah.
They're learning as kids, right? I tell kids all the time, if I can save you from having to wait until you get to 30 to go to counseling and like deal with your stuff, if I can get you some of this stuff as a kid, like I can save you a lot of heartache and a lot of stress.
Well, how do you, but is that, I guess the word I would ask, is that a practical? I don't know if that's what the word I'm looking for, practical. What I mean by that is, some of this stuff, is introspection that
Yes.
you use when you get a little older and wisdom. And as a kid, I mean, I'm going back to me, and I thought I knew it all, and I was all in my own head,
Yep.
and I absolutely was. I knew nothing about some of the things that
Yes.
that I end up having to work through and deal with now. And you're talking to a kid who was the only child that was in my head a lot, and trust me. So is that practical? Can
Yes.
that be done?
Yes. So imagine just even for like the smallest example. Let's say how you said parents were in the mode of, I'm just dropping my kid off. The
Yeah.
teacher is the expert. I'll pick you up.
Right.
Oftentimes, like you said, teachers don't necessarily know how to differentiate. We got kids just sitting in the classroom sometimes that aren't getting what they need. Imagine if I, as a child, do not have the concept of kids are to be seen and not heard, which is how we were raised.
Yes.
And they actually know how to say, hey, Miss So-and-so, I don't understand this. Like, am I able to come and get some support? They're learning how to speak up for themselves.
Wow.
They're learning how to see what's going on in the world. We have so many kids that are dealing with bullying and all these things because they don't understand the concept of social awareness. They don't know how to pick up on social cues. They're doing stuff to each other. That's why we see them as they get older out here. You know, we shoot first and then we think about it later.
Yeah.
Like, if we can change some of those mindsets,
Yeah.
it's not that they, you know, are getting this every second of the day, but it's also that SEL should be integrated in academics.
Yeah.
So if you're struggling in a subject, you should be able to go to your teacher and not feel like, I can't speak up to an adult. No, hey, Ms. Johnson, I don't know how to do this.
Yeah.
And it might be the way, you know, it might be the way you talk. Like,
Right.
I am a visual learner and you're just speaking.
Right.
It's auditory.
Right.
I might need to see some pictures. Can you help me with this?
Yeah.
It's literally equipping them for when they become adults in the world, because now, like, the folks are so scared to say something to their boss, and I'm like, look, I'm taking a mental health day. Like, I am that person that's like, I had a mental health day planned out every month to take care of myself, and I feel like so many of us would be so much better off if we learned that a long time ago. So we're trying in little bits to incorporate that in the schools, even if it's them helping out their friend in the classroom or standing up for their friend or advocating for their own academics. So they're going to have to do that in college. They might as well learn that now.
You want to know something? Can I be honest with you?
Yes.
And that is that this is probably the first time, and I've been a smart aleck, and I've been talking about this a long time. And I'm not saying this just because you're here. I'm going to be honest with you. This is the first time that I've kind of sat here and got it. Yeah. And what I mean by get it is, you explained it as it's a new way or an evolution of doing things. And what I mean by that is, when I was growing up and I was in school, and as I said, I'm the product of two educators. My dad was a principal, my mom a teacher. My mom was actually my teacher one year. I never thought about kind of really advocating for myself. I was just always taught, like many other kids, to just listen. You know, to kind of sit back, wait for the assignment, kind of do it. And you are absolutely right. There is a certain light that goes off, or at least I can only speak for myself. I kind of wrote it off to just maturity. There probably was some of that going on too, because I was very mature. But anyway, but no. Even as you know, even in college, I mean, I didn't take the opportunity, as I sometimes look back and. You know, and I'm paying for these classes and things like that, to really kind of say, you know what, I'm going to go walk to the TA or the graduate assistant, and I'm going to talk to them. I'm not going to sit here lecture after lecture and, you know, be in the dark about something when I can just walk over here and say, you know, I got a problem with the beginning of chapter 2. Let's deal with that now. This is where I'm at. And I didn't have those tools, and now I kind of get it. I've never really kind of heard it where it was just kind of laid out. Yeah. And I think you did a very academic job of explaining it, but I don't know, somehow it just kind of resonated. So I kind of understand that now, because I respect that approach. And I think, you know, to be honest with you, I think it is a good, useful way of kind of going at it. So I'm just being a little honest about myself. That normally I was just kind of like, I don't buy that. They're all a bunch of wussies. But no, I really do. I really do appreciate that kind of approach to it. Makes sense.
Yeah. I mean, I'm glad I could, you know, turn you a little bit. Listen, I don't believe in participation trophies.
Good.
I'm going to be honest.
Good.
Like, when I play Uno and stuff with the kids in my family,
they don't win.
They're not winning, because you got to learn how to play it with somebody else. I feel like that's how you build character, right?
Do you stack?
Thank you. You know what I'm talking about, Chris.
Stacks, ladders, all of the things, right? But I also feel like what brings me joy is I have a 3-year-old niece who knows how to, when her mom, who I love my sister, is being a little harsh on her, she knows how to be like, Mom, I don't like that. Don't do that to me. And that brings me so much joy because imagine like, my mom was an educator, so it was like you're getting A's or you're not, and that's why, hello, adult with anxiety, because everything had to be perfect.
Right.
Everything had to be perfect, and that drives kids crazy. And if they just knew that, hey, you are worthy, regardless of what the grade on your report card says, and then if it's not where you want it to be, you can go advocate for yourself. Or hey, you can also understand that, like, maybe this is an area you struggle in, but let's also focus on those areas that you are really good in, and you bring this to the table. Like, we are not taking care of our students wholly, our children wholly.
Holistically,
Yes, like they are not just a number on a test. They're not a score, and they don't get that. And I feel like that's what we got. It was so many standardized tests. It's just like,
oh my God, yes.
To the test,
but that's what it seems like they're going through now.
Yes, and they are, but that's why it has to be SEO integrated into academics. It has to be every minute of the day. We have to think about, like, what I'm working with a lot of our staff on is, why are we suspending? What are we suspending for? Why are we suspending kids? Are we dealing with the root issues? Have we talked about, like, what these kids, we have kids that actually have to be out here and be grown.
Oh, absolutely.
Because they're taking care of their siblings. So what?
It's hard to be a kid for some of these kids.
Exactly. So school should be the place where they get to be a kid.
No.
Like you said, you had to be mature. No, I even when I'm doing professional development, I want my adults to play. Like, you deserve an opportunity to just be a human being.
Absolutely.
And kids don't
get that. You love me working for you.
Listen. Oh, I love to have fun. I love to laugh. That's why I'm like, y'all are going to laugh when I'm around here. But we need that space to just be and just exist, and we didn't get that as kids.
Now let me ask you this, and I want you to be able, because I know we're pressed for time, and I want you to get into the second part of something we want to discuss. But when I'm hearing this, because it does seem like there is, without getting political and things like that, because what you just kind of brought me over to a side that I really never thought about, but yet and still I do hear the devil's advocate voice out there where, the machine or the government or whatever you want to call it says, you know what, we can't, this is a parent's job. We can't afford to get into every kid's individual problem. We don't have the resources. We really don't have the time. This is a work environment. When we have kids here, they need to focus. They need to do the task at hand. And we're going to hold you as the educators accountable for it, because we're going to tie their test grades or whatever into the results to your advancement, Bob, whatever the case may be. And they say we just don't have time to get it. In a perfect world, in a small class size of just 12, like Little House on the Prairie, we can all get in there and work on kids' problems and what's going on at home. But when we got class sizes of 25, 27, God bless the urban schools, 32, 33. We just don't have that kind of luxury. So what do? We got to matriculate these kids through and get ready for the next batch.
Yes. So I would say I was at a district of 600 some odd schools.
Wow.
And every single day, every single school had to have 30 minutes of SEO. And that was just the explicit SEO, right? It had to be integrated so that we can stop seeing SEL and academics as a separation.
As a separate thing.
SEL is the foundation of everything, because if kids are not well, and if kids, I can teach all day. But if you haven't been fed because you had to fight for the last whatever, because you have multiple siblings and you didn't, you had to let the younger ones eat. Or if something is going on, you just saw your mom be abused, or your dad just lost his job.
Or you haven't slept.
You literally, you live in a noisy environment. There's people in and out of your house. You haven't slept. There is no academics that's going to take place before I take care of my child's social emotional needs. There just is not. So the folks that make policy and do all of those things, it's like, you have to think about, this is everywhere. Maslow's hierarchy of needs.
Absolutely.
You have to take care of those physiological needs before we can get to academics. And so that's why I know with teachers, like, we would get rated on those things. Like, those are things that you're getting rated on. You have to learn how to integrate it so you can get both done at the same time.
Right.
And I think when it comes to even just like the test and all of those things like that, that's why we have to have a strong tier 1 academically and behaviorally.
Yes.
Because then we can reach every kid.
Yeah.
Even if it's just that tier 1 SEO, we're hitting every kid. And then we can take those smaller groups into tier 2 and those individuals into tier 3. It won't be every kid in tier 3.
No.
But if every kid gets that tier 1 touch point, then we're getting every kid's SEO.
Well, I like it. I'll be honest with you. I really do like this conversation. I know my wife advocates for this at home, and I hear her talk about it. But just kind of hearing it, kind of regurgitated, or kind of where you're backing up, you're saying the same thing. It's really getting me thinking about this, and God bless you all. I think there needs to be more people like you all, and I know that there are a lot of you out here that articulate this, because I don't think, I know we're in a very political environment, my politics notwithstanding. I think when we're out here advocating for what public school education and things like that look like, I think you made a very good case about why isn't necessarily about socioeconomics and things like that. It's about a child's environment. It's about where he or she is, and just giving he or she a fair shot at learning. That's all you're kind of saying. That's what I'm hearing. It's like, look, there's a lot of other noise. Some of these kids have a lot of stuff going on. All I want to do is have them in a place where they can start off learning like the next kid, and then they can go at it. And that's what tier 1 is about, having that foundation. I think that was a very great way of putting it. We are kind of up again, but tell us, there was another component we were talking about as it relates to parents. Please get to that, because I think that's just as important as indulging some of my stuff.
No, so we are doing some great things. We're getting some things in the works for parents. We have a regional stakeholder group, and it's actually not just for parents. It's for community members. It's for staff. We just want to have a majority, or at least half of our group, be parents. We want their voices to be at the forefront. But it's a group that basically will be leading the charge on parent literacy and parent engagement in the district. And our first session is coming up next Wednesday, April 9th. It's going to be over at the central office building, which is at Westside, from 4 to 5:30. And we really want folks to come out so we can hear, how do you see like the landscape of GCSE changing over the next year? And we're really going to start planning. They're going to be responsible for so many things, because we want to next year bring monthly family engagement nights centered around
God bless you
literacy.
all. You are so ambitious.
At every school, it'll be one school per month. But we'll make sure we have space from the littles all the way to the big kids. We're making engaging movies playing, reading, different stations, and it'll be great. But we're also doing a huge parent conference. We're trying to push that out this May 31st, which will be like
a
Saturday.
Parent summit.
Literally a parent summit where parents, not just them learning, but them also being poured into. So we want to make sure we have massages there for them. We want to have breakfast, and we want to have lunch for them. We want to have staff there, because there is a dual partnership model where we want to have, it's a capacity building model where we have our staff and our parents work together. So it's not just about the parents always being taught and told something. It's about us learning from them as well. And so First Lady Crystal Melton is going to be the keynote speaker there. Yes, she'll be the keynote speaker. And we want to have,
because she's got the literacy thing going on.
Yes, she has that literacy task force initiative where we've been having volunteers go into the schools and pull groups of students and read to them. So we want to literally have that kind of permeate through everything we do with our parents. And so this will be an opportunity for them to come out and be equipped to work with their students, but also get poured into as just human beings, as adults.
And get pampered.
Get pampered. And so we want to do some things that day. That's going to be May 31st, Saturday, from 8:30 to 3:30.
Isn't that Memorial Day? Well,
no,
not that Monday.
It's after Memorial Day weekend, and it's before school is out. So we want to get them while their kids are still here. If they need to bring kids, we have childcare available. We're gonna, have that set up, and it'll be over at Westside. So it'll be just a time for our parents to really come out and just be taken care of. Like, I'm big on making sure folks feel good when they come into this district. And so staff can come, parents can come, community members can come. I even want parents in the community who don't have kids at GCSC, like the ones that have little kids,
right?
Because eventually we want you to bring your kids to our district.
Right.
So we want you to be equipped to work with them before they even get here, so that they'll be in those gifted, states. So so that'll be coming up. We want to do parents' night out at restaurants. Like, we really want to engage them and make them feel like they're more than just the guardians of the kids to us, that they're actually stakeholders at this district. So that'll be coming up.
I like that. You know, listen, I just got to ask you, I was about to be like, you know, how many years from academia are you? Because you are really articulating what I think, and I'm not an educator, you know, so I'm not at the conferences and I don't get the NEA newsletters and any of that stuff. But I mean, it does sound like you are articulating some of the questions that a lot of us have had about where education really is.
Yes.
I mean, no disrespect to, a guy that I liked when he was a president a little bit, but No Child Left Behind seemed that it got everything a little twisted as far as, just a little balance of things kind of got off. And then going forward, the disparities in different communities and things like that. And I never could sit back as somebody, once again, I always like to say I'm not in education, so maybe that's why I'm not that close, is I just didn't understand what was trying to happen. And I do think some people thrive in chaos because there's a lot of competition for kids now, because kids equate to money.
Yeah,
so there's that out there going on. So there's a lot of misinformation going on. But I really do, and I'm saying this not as a homer for the district or the fact that, we're doing this show, that I really do think that you kind of articulated what it is that we're parents' role and a very doable role for parents to get involved. It's not intimidating. Nobody's trying to put anybody on blast or make them feel less than. It's a joint mission, and everybody's welcome. That's kind of what I feel that you were talking about.
Absolutely, and that's why we have that dual capacity building model. It has to be both. It can't just be staff doing it all. It can't just be on the parents. I don't want to hear complaints about, parents aren't engaged. What are you doing to engage parents, right?
Yeah.
How are you making them feel comfortable from the moment they walk in the building? So that's from the security that they meet. That's how the administrators speak with them. Are the teachers only calling when their child is in trouble? Or are they calling to give them the positive reports about their students? Do you even know the parents? Exactly. Yeah. Do you know what the kids do on the weekend? Are they on a football team? Are they playing basketball? Like, what do you actually know? And that's why I said it goes back to relationship building. If you don't have relationships, my parents would come in when I was the case manager for special education, and I asked in my budget, could I get a Keurig? And that
look at you.
Only because when they would have to come in, you're coming into an IEP meeting, you're already stressed that you feel like your child has special education services. Folks are talking to you in acronyms.
Yeah.
They're talking to you in acronyms. You don't know what they mean. I never let my team use acronyms.
Good.
I had an agenda printed out so parents would know what we were doing.
Right.
And then when they would come in, and I had the parents that came in with the rah-rah and were upset, right? Let me make you some coffee. What kind of creamer do you want? You want all of this? Okay. And then I'm talking to you and just really trying to disarm you and calm you down to know that you have somebody on your side.
Yeah.
Most parents don't feel like they have anybody on their side. Right. And so that has to change, because you have to treat them the same way you would want to be treated.
Right.
It's easy to get frustrated with parents, and parents, it's easy to get frustrated with staff, but at the end of the day, we should all be on the same page to try to make sure your kids are doing well. And if we all really care about the kids, then we'll do what it takes.
This has been absolutely very, very informative. I hope, I'm almost certain it's for the audience. If, as I said, it was a lot. It was eye-opening for me. I love this conversation. It really did learn a lot. I want to thank you for indulging me in some of my questions. They might be a little simple at times, but I appreciate that. I really do. Give us some dates real quick. Once again, I want you to reaffirm the date coming up next week so parents or people can write it down.
Absolutely.
And then give us some other stuff before you go that we should be putting on our radar.
Absolutely. So the regional stakeholder group is going to take place at the central office building, the administration building at 900 Jerry Street. From 4 to 5:30 p.m. It's going to be in the conference room. You can enter through door V.
Yeah.
And so we would love to have you guys there, because we're going to map out how the year is going to look. The Power of Partnership Parent Conference, first annual parent conference here at GCSC, is going to be Saturday, May 31st from 8:30 to 3:30. Come out, eat, get pampered, get taken care of, learn, and your kids can come. We have childcare provided. So those are going to be our 2 next major things coming up. And then over the summer, we'll continue to work because we want to make sure the 2026 school year is amazing. So we'll have tons of stuff for parents and staff to work together.
Well, you know what, young lady, this has been an absolute pleasure. Before I let you all go, I want to give a shout out to you, Crystal. You didn't get an opportunity last week and the week before for me to kind of tell you that. I do my whole little things in the morning, but I just want to thank you. I know we were going through our stuff at the station. And then I know last week with what was going on with McCullough, but I didn't really, you're part of the team. And I want to thank you on behalf of the audience, because I've been getting, we upgraded our facilities, our streaming and things like that, and you are always integral to that. Plus you come over and obviously do this behind the scenes. But I thanked everybody. I really did, because I always like to count my blessings. I've worked at a couple of places, and I'm not knocking anybody else, but I don't think a lot of people have it as easy as I have. And when I mean easy, I'm privileged that I have a team that makes themselves available to me. There are not a lot of, trust me, I know a lot of them. There are not a lot of people that have a variety of different businesses in media and things like that. And outside of being a billionaire, they have access to probably the smartest group of IT people that I do. And you all don't work for me. You all are out there in the ethos, but I call you all. I'm always texting. Hey, Crystal, I talk about participation trophies and whining. That's me. Crystal, what happened? It's not on. And they get up and they treat us like a priority. Shout out Crystal, Bryant, Charles, all of them. And I just want to say thank you. I really do appreciate it. I'm not taking it lightly. And we're streaming, so everybody's treating me like a king, but I want to let them know that I had help getting here. So I just want to say that I'm appreciative of the people I work with as well. All right. That's the district, people. We're going to get ready to get out of here. Big Pop will be here in about 10 minutes, body rolling in the afternoon. He's going to carry you to 5 o'clock. Then Uncle Buck's going to be here. He's going to carry you the entire way home. And then after that, they turn it over to the overnight program, and that goes into the inspirational. And I'll be right back at it tomorrow morning, as I always am, Monday through Friday, starting at 7:30. Wake Up GI with Jeffrey Smith. Until then, go out, do some stuff, be important. More importantly, if you want to, mascot, we're out of here.